Users of Reddit. When have you been genuinely scared for your life? Literally 3 days ago I woke up in the middle of the night to see a face in my room. Someone had climbed through the window and I just happened to wake up before they had a chance to do whatever they were planning to do. So what happened? That's terrifying as fuck. When he saw I'd woken up he froze and after a few seconds he started trying to have a conversation. I'm pretty certain he was heavily on drugs because he just started hastily asking how I was, probably as a means of controlling the situation. I didn't really have time to process what was happening and just started telling him to go away and that I didn't want him in my house. He got angry when I started swearing at him, as if I was the one that was out of order, and turned to some others that were round the corner by my back door. As soon as he was out the window I shut and locked them and stayed up in the kitchen until they stopped banging on the back door around 6 a.m. The people I've told have been shocked at how calmly I handled myself, but I've never experienced anything even remotely like it before, and I guess the shock/adrenaline just takes over and I didn't start panicking until after it was over. Definitely the last time I leave my window open at night. It's good that your first thought was to yell and scare them off. I was once sleeping at a friend's house and someone tried to break into a window about a foot or two from where my head was. My dumbass didn't even consider that it was the middle of the night and this person probably was not supposed to be going into the window, and I just flicked him off for waking me up and went back to sleep. Luckily my friend was in the same bed and had more sense than me and woke everyone up and the guy got scared off. About 5 minutes after being stabbed I felt a fear that I've never experienced since. I was sat down reading a book when some guy comes up, yells at me and punches me in the face, and I'm taken aback a little, not exactly in a fighting position. I just looked up confused as fuck, where he then punched me again, sending my glasses flying off of my face. That's when I realized I was being attacked, so I went to get up and got punched again, making me fall back from the force of it. Nothing hurt, I wasn't in pain, so once I got into a position where I could defend myself I told him to fuck off before I knock him the fuck out, or something like that, and he looked at me completely stunned and left. Moments later my teacher sees me, rushes over and screams at the guy as Hess walking away, trying to drag me inside, but I refused. They told me I got stabbed. I tried explaining to them that I was just punched and it was probably the cluster of zits I had on my cheek that burst when he hit me. Someone notices my glasses and grabs them. I put my hand to my chin because it felt itchy and I pulled it back covered in blood, so I allowed my teacher to take me inside. Still convinced I wasn't stabbed, they had to make me look into a mirror where I would then see my entire cheek ripped open. Sounds painful, right? Well, luckily he tore my nerves and I felt nothing, but then someone was looking at my glasses and the situation looked like it had the best outcome. The part that covers my temple was barely hanging on, because he tried to stab me in the temple first, and then when that never worked he went for the fucking eye, which had a huge, deep scratch in it from where the lenses saved my eye. That pair of glasses saved my life and my eyesight, which I suppose is half of their job. Edit, couple of people saying they'd kick the shit out of him or stab him. Sadly it takes something away from you in situations like this, where if I saw the guy ever again I'd probably have a meltdown. My sister tried to stab me when we were kids. I thought it was a joke at first when she picked it up, so I said, "What are you gonna do? Stab me?" Well, she tried. She lunged at me and I grabbed her by the wrist and ripped the knife out of her hand and threw it into the sink. She runs off. Then it hits me, she just tried to kill me. And I just lean onto the kitchen counter as my eyes tear up. Then my mom walks in screaming, "Why did you try and stab your sister?" I look at her confused and then my sister walks in behind my mom. I realize pretty quickly this bitch just told my mom that I tried to stab her. I say nothing and just leave. When I came back I tried to explain to her, but to this day she still believes her. That's wild. Why did she do it? How is your relationship with your family, especially your sister now? I don't remember her reasoning for it. It was something stupidly childish though, like I was watching TV and wouldn't let her change the channel. When this happened I was like 8-9-ish and she was 7-8-ish. My relationship with my sister is strained at best. We only talk to each other when she needs something from me. I never initiate anything with her, and when I move out next year I doubt I'll ever speak to her again. I was in Cameroon as a missionary and got an eye infection because of my contact lenses. I went to a filthy military hospital where I was told I needed injections in my eye because the bacteria had eaten a hole in my cornea and I would likely lose my vision. I guess it wasn't my life, but it was pretty scary. Edit, to all those asking what ended up happening, I, thankfully, didn't get eye injections, flew to South Africa the next day, and then back home to the US a week later. The doctors there were great and I've made an almost complete recovery. I still have a scar on the side of my eye where the hole was, which makes my vision a little blurry, but I'm otherwise unscathed. Husband and I were in the car at a red light on a trip. Light turns green and we noticed but had to pick something up from the floor or something before starting to move. After retrieving the soda bottle, we started to go, and a giant truck stacked with raw logs blares his horn and runs through the intersection full speed 20 feet in front of us, where our sedan should logically have been. The stoplight was at the bottom of the hill and he couldn't stop in time. Did you give your life to Jesus after that? Already had faith then, but we just drove in stunned silence until we reached a restaurant where we could recuperate. When I first moved to Baltimore, I got very lost extremely late at night. This was before GPS and cell phones. I ended up in a part of town that was straight up the wire and was sure I was going to get carjacked, being a young girl in my early 20s at the time. How long did it take you to find your way home? That sounds like my worst nightmare. About 2 hours. And I was simultaneously proud of myself and high on an adrenaline rush. Twice I was certain I was going to die, both in the army. Once while training I was given the wrong parachute, so my ripcord was too long. Like the song goes, jump on out and count to 4? Except for me it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, oh fuck. Before pulling my reserve and being laughed at after my main deployed as well. Second time was when my platoon loaded up into a helicopter after a long mission in Afghanistan, took off, and promptly got shot right the fuck down. Straight up and straight back down again. Luckily the enemy was apparently not prepared to actually shoot us down, because while they assaulted the bird, the push wasn't really that big and we were able to get picked up by another bird shortly after. We had tons of air assets while waiting though. Like within minutes there were F-16s and A-10s buzzing around us, Apaches, a drone, and when it started to get darker a C-130 gunship provided a security. Which meant basically within minutes of getting shot down the enemy had broken off their attack and we had to sit there the rest of the time wondering if they would come back. That fall down though, feels like it took like 20 minutes even though it was probably like 10 seconds. Years ago I went to Portugal with my family, and at the time I couldn't swim yet, kept doing stupid stuff in the water like going out too far, and had done stuff like that for years even though my parents constantly told me off for it. So one day we all go to the pool and I had a beach ball with me, so I hugged tight around it and went down the ladder right into the deep end of the pool. Pretty much right away I knew that I'd fucked up and meekly tried calling for help, but no one heard, so I attempted to paddle back to the ladder, but as I did the ball I had slipped out of my arms. Lol. Pretty much right away I went under and started struggling and panicking. I was screaming underwater and frantically trying to get up, but like I said, I couldn't swim. After what seemed like forever but was probably only like 10 seconds I felt an arm grab me and pull me out, and sure enough it was my dad. He was laughing at me but also calling me an idiot. Lol. It turned out he'd been watching me like a hawk the very second I went into the deep end, but wanted me to learn a lesson the hard way, so when I went under he took his time getting to me. It worked though, as I don't do stupid things like that now. Just to add about my parents' method of raising me, I was a very ignorant and fearless child who'd often disobey my parents, so more times than not they'd have to take drastic action to make me see sense. My sisters never went through the kind of stuff I did, but that's 'cause they were responsible enough to listen. Without my parents letting me find out stuff in a controlled environment the hard way, I'd either be dead or in prison. Lol. Not scared for my life, but for someone's else. She was my second girlfriend and it was my first time genuinely in love with somebody. I was connected to her so much more than anything I'd ever felt in my life. We were talking on the phone I believe, and she got really depressed. It was about how she didn't think she deserved someone like me. Of course I felt that it wasn't true and tried to convince her otherwise. I'd like to mention that people generally opposed of our relationship because she was a tomboy and looked too much like a guy, so she didn't have a great self-image at the time. She suddenly hung up and I was extremely worried about her. I kept calling and calling. I also texted in between because things felt like they got a whole lot worse. Sometime later she picked up in tears and started apologizing, saying that she couldn't continue what she was doing while looking over at her phone seeing me call so many times. She told me that she was planning on overdosing on her meds. She was already down her third and about to take another. She was normally supposed to take just one a day. I don't know how much was lethal, but I was so shocked and my heart just stopped. It hurt so hard to hear that she had almost killed herself just because she believed that I deserved better. I don't remember what I did when I saw her again, but I'd be the worst man in the world if I didn't give her the biggest hug and kiss back then. We are no longer together, but I treasure the time I got to spend with her. She's currently alive and well in a happy relationship with her boyfriend. We still chat occasionally even though I had to move, and I plan on visiting her sometime this summer.